big story today, of course, world leaders and royalty from across the globe will bid a final farewell to Queen Elizabeth II. I beg your pardon. This, of course, is taking place after an official lying-in-state period of 4 days in which hundreds of thousands queued to file past the casket of Britain's longest-reigning monarch at London's historic Westminster Hall. Of course, you'll see these are the live visuals that people have queued throughout the night to come and pay their last respects. There are 20 minutes left because this ends at exactly 7:30 our time. And that, of course, is what we're seeing 6:30 UK time. So they are going to be some of the final ones that are able to bid farewell to their queen. Now, let's bring in Sophie Mokoena, who, of course, has been watching this from the get-go, and our international relations editor basically talking to us about what we can expect today and the importance of this occasion for South Africa and the world at large. Sophie, lovely to be chatting to you this morning. So you can see the last few people that are able to file past. It's been quite an incredible 10 days, I must say, just seeing people from all over going to bid their farewell to the Queen.
Yes, indeed. It has been a hectic 10 days for United Kingdom and the world at large. As you can see, we are left now with about 20 minutes before that door is closed by those who are responsible for assisting people who wanted to view the coffin of the Queen. And therefore, that will be almost the start of the preparations countdown to the funeral. That's likely to start at 11 local time, but 12 o'clock South African time. And therefore, many people really looking forward to be inside the hall. And there are those who are definitely not going to make it when you look at the queues. And the messages of support from around the world, including the Commonwealth member countries in particular. And I think the whole week, the past few days, we saw the families greeting people outside Buckingham Palace, extending their appreciation for the support they've received as the family.
Yeah, it's been, I must say, something to watch and in a way sort of, wonder what many people around the world are thinking, because there are so many different trains of thoughts when it comes to the Queen and her reign. And I mean, there's no getting away from the fact that this is one of the biggest major global events that has happened in our time, and certainly to see for particularly Britain, the longest reigning monarch being laid to rest. This is huge, but they're mixed emotions. Talk to us about that.
Well, I think the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, last week summed it very well to say she experienced different times since she took over as head of state of United Kingdom. It was at a time where colonialism was fading away, but you still had countries that were under colonial rule, others under apartheid rule. And therefore, those countries that were under the colonial rule previously, they do have a different reaction to what has happened. Many people are saying that the monarchy the monarch didn't really go far enough in terms of showing remorse on what the colonial rule has done, particularly on the continent. Others even questioning, when you look at the crown, we know that there was a diamond given to her, given to Britain so that they can do that crown. And unfortunately, that diamond came from South Africa, and people are asking questions in terms of whether we deserve reparation or it must be repatriated to South Africa, or perhaps a payment must be made as part of showing remorse in terms of how colonial rule plundered the resources of the continent. And you also have a similar sentiment in the Caribbean, where you have some countries where they still have the Queen or now the King as the head of state, while others have decided to abandon that system, and they now have a president as head of state and also a prime minister as head of government, countries such as Barbados.
Yeah, it is going to certainly be interesting to see the different kind of monarchy we're going to be seeing now that the Queen has left. Now, of course, we've got King Charles that's moving in. He's 73 years old, 74 years old, so, you know, he's got nowhere near the amount of time that his mother ruled. But then, of course, there's a younger generation that's coming in after him. And one wonders how things will change. What do you think, firstly, under King Charles? Do you think much will change on the monarchy, their stance on certain issues? Or do you think it'll be very much the same under him, but once we start getting to a newer, younger generation, things may just change?
When you listen to the speech he delivered a day after the passing on of the Queen in the evening, his first public statement, King Charles, made it clear that based on his twilight years or him being senior, he doesn't have much time to really bring real changes within the system itself. But he pointed out that Prince William will be next in line. And therefore you expect Prince William, a younger person, a younger generation, should he take over, to come with changes in terms of how you position this leadership. But the problem is you have countries within the United Kingdom who are also calling for changes. And therefore, it will be important for King Charles, much as he doesn't have time and he has indicated that he is not going to implement lots of changes, to do something, a sign that there are changes that are coming, particularly with the young generation. The world can expect changes. And therefore, his interaction with certain projects around the world, particularly issues related to climate change, he has made his mind clear in terms of his views on the issues related to climate change. And he didn't shy away or feel that because he's part of this house, he can't make certain comments. And therefore, one expects him, even though he is not going to be able to say much about what's happening in the world, to do something or be able, where necessary, indirectly to make certain statements, not really powerful statements, but indication when things are not going right. You would recall that much as the Queen was not able to talk about political matters, but we know now, people who interacted with her, that she did express her displeasure in terms of the apartheid system. And that is why they were not in good terms with the former Prime Minister of Britain, that is Margaret Thatcher. And therefore, you expect him also to be able to send signals when things are not going right. And therefore, but in terms of the change, how they behave going forward, I think all eyes are on Prince William.
I definitely think so. And of course, also saying that Prince William will be very much so alongside his father during this reign. And I think that that's something we'll see. Let's turn our attention now to, obviously, our president is there, along with some other African leaders. I mean, I know that we've got the president of Ghana, I think, that's attending, and Gabon, as well as South Africa. I'm sure you know more of the presidents that will be at the funeral from Africa represented. But let's talk of the representation from the continent at the funeral.
Well, you have a large number of leaders from the continent. Let's start with the current chair of the Commonwealth, that is Rwanda. President Paul Kagame is there. You know that he hosted the Commonwealth Summit last year in Rwanda, in Kigali, and King Charles was there. He was representing the Queen at that time because the Queen had mobility challenges. You also have William Ruto, who was recently inaugurated as the president of Kenya. This is his first international engagement or visit. From London, he will be going to the United Nations, and most of them. You have Ghana, which is part of the Commonwealth. Nigeria, the largest economy on the continent, is represented by its vice president. Of course, you have President Cyril Ramaphosa. How can I forget the Queen of Lesotho, Letsie Laboraro, who is also there, a very close friend of Prince William. And also, you know that Morena Seiso, Beren Seiso, the younger brother to the king, a very close friend to Prince Harry. And therefore, you have quite a number of leaders from the continent representing different countries, and I chose those countries based on the responsibilities the countries have. And also South Africa, clearly, you know that the relationship with United Kingdom dates back to many, many, many years ago. And as we speak now, United Kingdom is still our largest trading partner in terms of tourism, tourists coming to South Africa from the United Kingdom, and therefore the relations are very, very strong, both at government level and also at head of state level, that is the Queen. She visited South Africa many times. The first time she came to South Africa was in 1947, when she was 21 years of age, and when she celebrated her 21st birthday, she made that powerful speech. Even today, in fact, when the king made his statement after the passing on of the Queen a day after, he started with the words that were uttered by the Queen at that time, where she made a commitment to serve the Commonwealth, to serve the nation, to serve the United Kingdom, and to serve the world. And later he came for Commonwealth meeting, where he interacted with former President Nelson Mandela. She even went to Avalon, where she presided over the unveiling of the memorial of those soldiers who perished in that ship, SS Mendy.
Yeah. Just, Sophie, as we wrap up and I let you go, obviously the president, our South African president, is there. He's now going to attend the funeral and then cancel the rest of his trip. He's meant to be going to the United Nations General Assembly. That is now something he won't be doing, saying he's coming back to South Africa to attend to electricity issues, with Eskom announcing stage 6 load shedding, and something we will see for the rest of the week because of the dire state of the grid. What do you make of that? Cutting it short, does it matter? South Africans are weighing in on this as well, saying, what difference does it make? If he doesn't come with a plan, why should he bother coming?
It depends where you stand. For those who are saying he shouldn't have done that, I think it's also justifiable, because we have technology now where you can continue to interact and have meetings with Zoom or use technology, Teams. And that's what he did yesterday. He did speak to all relevant ministers and stakeholders within the sector to try and find out what happened and what needs to be done. For others, it would be better when he's in the country, he is part of what we are experiencing, and he can have a better feel and experience of what is happening, because the nation is angry, very, very angry.
All right, we leave it there. Sophie, thanks very, very much. Well, those visuals that we're seeing, Sophie, as we look at that, this is pretty much sort of the last 7 minutes now, as we're entering into that time where the public will, this is where the queue comes to an end, basically. And those that are in there, I would imagine this is it. This is where it's cut off. You can see it's cut off. There we go. It's happened. Sophie, I mean, does this, and I know you experienced it as well. I mean, when that feeling when you're going past, and I know with the late President Nelson Mandela, we had the opportunity to experience and do the same. But the feeling is very hard to explain when you are there. But those that are there experiencing this is an incredible moment in history.
Well, particularly for journalists, you have been covering the news around this newsmaker. And at some point in time, you establish a certain relationship. For example, I did Madiba stories, and I traveled the length and breadth of the country with Madiba when he was going to launch his projects, the schools, the clinics. I end up being his child, and there was a relationship. At times, he would talk to me on, private matters. I would do the same. And therefore, when you cover this story at this moment, when you have been involved, there comes a time where you pause, and that emotion, you carry it along. And I think for those in the United Kingdom who have covered the Queen for a long time, those who have interacted with her, I think this is a moment of truth. You know that when you go past through Madiba, how you felt at that time. Not even when you saw you remember the planes that were carrying his body flying to Kunu?
Yeah.
When you saw those military planes, those big planes, cargo planes, I mean, the whole country was gripped by emotions. When he landed at Umtata Airport, we were already in in the Eastern Cape.
Yeah.
I mean, watching the visuals and then the service in the church and finally him being laid to rest. I think the United Kingdom is going through the same, and the world, because even Madiba's funeral was watched by millions around the world. And I think today it is the same. This is a big story. The world is watching.
It
and
really is.
You can trust the SABC will bring you all the developments.
Yeah, indeed. Remember, these are live visuals that you're seeing and experiencing here on SABC2 and SABC News as that queue finally coming to an end after hundreds of thousands of people have been queuing for some experiencing 13, 14 hours, some staying overnight in freezing conditions to ensure that they get their final moments, just to bid farewell to the Queen, who passed away and, of course, will be buried today. So you can see that the doors have been closed there. And this is for the moment that now all the planning ahead of the funeral is now going to go. And as we've spoken to, this is like clockwork. I mean, this cannot begin a minute later or a minute before its scheduled time. So she's been lying in state there at Westminster Hall. This is, of course, in the heart of London. And the doors now closed, and her body will now be prepared to be taken a short distance away at Westminster Abbey. And they'll be opened, of course, for guests to start lining in for that funeral. So, Sophie, this is it. We'll be catching up with you again as we bring the live broadcast starting at 11 o'clock on SABC2. Thanks so much for being with us. That, of course, is our foreign editor, Sophie McQuina, talking to us about what is happening in the UK, the relations with the UK, and, of course, the monarchy, as we bid farewell to the Queen and welcome in the new King Charles. But today is the burial, and our president is there as well.